The purpose of this presentation is to fulfill the requirements for the assignment Subject Analysis 8 for MIS 325, Management Information Systems. Welcome everyone. Today we're diving into the South Dakota profile on Data USA to see what the numbers tell us about our state's current trajectory. Some of these findings are quite surprising. For instance, while we often think of South Dakota as linguistically uniform, over 7% of our households now speak a language other than English, with significant representation from Spanish and native North American speakers. Economically, while agriculture is our soul, the data shows that data processing and hosting has quietly become our highest paying industry. This suggests a high-tech shift is already happening, even as nearly half of our entire population remains concentrated in just two hubs, Sioux Falls and Rapid City. However, while these numbers paint a picture of growth, we have to look closer at whether these averages actually match our lived experience, which brings us to our next point. Now, as we look at these growth markers, there are areas where my gut tells me that the data might be masking as more complex reality. For example, the reported median property value is over $257,000 with nearly 9% annual growth. If you're in a rural county, that number likely feels like a fantasy. It's almost certainly being inflated by the housing spikes in our major cities. Similarly, the average 17-minute commute is a statistical middle ground that fits almost no one. It overlooks both the urban traffic in Sioux Falls and the 40-mile treks common in the West River region. If we only look at these statewide averages, we risk ignoring the specific needs of our rural communities. To address these discrepancies, we need a targeted policy approach. To bridge the gaps we've just discussed, I have three specific recommendations for the state government. First, we must lean into our highest paying sector, data processing, by expanding high-speed fiber to our rural areas. This allows us to keep the high-wage workforce in smaller towns rather than losing them to the cities. Second, as our population continues to diversify, we need to ensure our health and safety resources are fully accessible in Spanish and native languages. Finally, we should implement rural housing tax credits. If we want our smaller towns to remain viable for the next generation of South Dakotans, we have to incentivize development where the 9% growth rate isn't currently reaching. By focusing on these three pillars, we can ensure the growth we see in the data becomes a reality for every resident, regardless of their zip code. To wrap everything up, the data from the South Dakota profile paints a picture of a state in the middle of a significant transition. We are no longer defined solely by one industry. We are becoming a hub for high-wage data processing and a home to an increasingly diverse population. However, as we've seen, the average numbers, whether it's property values or commute times, don't always tell the full story for our rural neighbors. Our mission as a state government is to ensure that the growth we see in Sioux Falls and Rapid City doesn't leave the rest of the state behind. By leaning into our new economic strengths, expanding digital infrastructure, and ensuring our services are accessible to all residents, we can bridge the gap between what the data says and what our citizens feel every day. Let's make sure the South Dakota of tomorrow is as strong as the data suggests it can be. Thank you.